Well, good afternoon, everyone. If you are interested in hearing from Ayla, I invite you to stay. If you're interested in continuing your conversation, that is just fine, but there's space out on the terrace for you. But it seems like most of you are going to stay, which is great. Ayla, this is her fourth time speaking today, so thank you, Ayla. We thought it would be nice to include, as part of this Sunday of welcoming her, a presentation on St. James's, since they are our sibling, link, partner, friend parish, whatever. We're working on the terminology, but we thought you might like to learn a little bit about them. Some of you have heard some from me. Some of you got a taste earlier today in Ayla's forum presentation, but we're going to learn even more now from her just on St. James's itself. Ayla, you've been such a good sport doing this whole morning with us. Thank you so much. We can't wait to hear what you have to say.
Oh, thank you. Thank you very much. It's wonderful to be here. I cannot tell you, just as I said just before my sermon with you all at the Eucharist this morning, I cannot tell you how overjoyed I've been to receive such a warm and frankly profound and powerful welcome across these few short days. And it really is brief. But it also feels like something that has been so filled with all kinds of different invitations to get involved in different aspects of the community. And so even though it's been brief, I feel that I'm getting to know you at least a little bit, and that this is a wonderful experience, the hospitality as well as the sense of Christian depth, of commitment to not only praying in the world and saying what we say, but also doing what we do, imagining the world to be different, as we say at St. James's Piccadilly, and then working to make it so. And so I see that at work in you in so many profound ways. So thank you for your witness to God in this world as well as in Manhattan. And thank you especially to Peter for all that you have done, for your generous welcome, and for everything that's made my visit possible. On behalf of St. James's, thank you very, very much. And thank you all. So I'd like to start with a quotation from someone named William Temple. You may have heard of him before. He was rector at St. James's Piccadilly and then went on to be Archbishop of Canterbury. And what he said was, "The church is the only institution that exists primarily for the benefit of those who are not its members." These spaces, these consecrated buildings and the communities that are formed in and around them are really about serving the world, not being silos, and being alongside the idea of all of us safe and warm and cozy in here in our church, and the world out there being whatever the world out there is. Absolutely not. If there is any sense of that, I think it needs to be dismantled and obliterated for the good of the community, for the good of our hearts, and for the good of what we can do in our own small way to bring about the values, the story, and the reality of the kingdom of God on earth. So I love that quotation, and that it comes from, at least in part, the experience of St. James's historically and today is something that I hope will frame some of the things I'd like to share with you. Just so I know, how many people have been to St. James's and visited this church? Peter has been. Peter came and joined us in early September. A few other hands up. It's wonderful to be able to see you. And as I said before, every single one of you is absolutely warmly and deeply welcome to come, to be part of St. James's online, if you wish. We do loads of stuff online, just like St. Bart's, and indeed to come in person to London if you can. You will receive a warm welcome. Both of our churches are city churches. What difference does that make? I think that's an open question. Both of our churches are what we call in England gathered congregations. People travel from long distances in order to come to St. James's Piccadilly. The average is around about 45 minutes of a journey. It's one of the reasons why our main service is at 11 o'clock, because we try to be merciful with people. I also think it's really important to give the folks who gather on Sundays, just as you do at St. Bart's, the very best of ourselves. Because this is the moment, much more than in lots of other smaller communities or local churches, this is the moment where our community comes together, where extraordinary things can happen, where relationships can be built. And because absolutely everything that we are, that we have, flows out from the Eucharist, which is something that's particularly precious at St. James's. It's at the heart of our strategy. It's at the heart of our prayer, at the heart of our pattern of what we do and how we do it in mission, action, in worship, in contemplation across the weeks and across the years. And of course, this is the place where we are fed, where through Christ's body and blood, just as we have been up at the altar at St. Bart's today at our 9 o'clock and our 11 o'clock service together, it's the place that nourishes so that then we can go out from church and be in the world, carrying the nourishment of the light, the hope, the love, the peace of Christ within us. I think it's also pretty important to be able to recognize that this year, in 2024, nearly half the world's population will be in a time of elections. And that's true, and I kind of love that in the room right now there's a bit of an, oh. I wish you peace, strength, courage, and many, many prayers, whatever lies ahead here in this country in the weeks and months to come. And similarly, in the UK, there will be elections as well. Those are opportunities to be having big discussions about the things that deeply matter for people of all faiths and none. Churches can be absolutely beacons for that, especially places that have the resources, the imagination, the space, the encouragement, the sense of hospitality, where people who may hold radically different views can meet together and really listen to one another, recognizing the dignity, the absolute humanity, the infinite worth of the person with whom they are in contact or the group with whom they are in contact, and perhaps then through that mutual struggle sometimes to work to make the world a better place, at least in some small way, through that authentic human real conversation together in the presence of God. And that's one of the things that St. James's tries to do. So that little red thing is where St. James's is. That's Piccadilly Circus. Soho to the north. That's Buckingham Palace down there, by the way, that tiny thing. There you go, it's little. St. James's Palace, just on the edge of our parish. There are some wildly resourced, wildly wealthy organizations, individuals, corporations in and around our parish, hundreds and hundreds of them. And Google has helped me to just point out two very briefly. The Royal Academy of Arts. We are known as the Artists' Church. There are many artists' memorials in and around this place, and we have a vibrant visual culture ministry, as well as working on social justice and earth justice alongside music and a variety of festivals that we group together under the category of music, arts, and ideas. The other I will point out to you is Fortnum and Mason. How many of you have been to Fortnum and Mason in London? I love this. This is so great. So a lot of you know that A, it's way better than Harrods. Way better than Harrods. And B, it is, now that you know precisely where St. James's is, our local grocery store. So there we go. And we had a really wonderful service for children just before Christmas. We had our nativity service on Christmas Eve in the afternoon, and all of them received little gift bags with chocolate from Fortnum and Mason. So there we go. We're always delighted to have that link with them. Now, just like loads of other places around here, there's staff who work there. There are tourists all over the place who come in to spaces like that, who are in and around this area. There are some residents. There are under 1,000 people, so it's very small, under 1,000 people who live in the parish. And there are folks, because St. James's is what it is, it's had a reputation for many years, who come to St. James's maybe once a year, once every few years, who come when they're in London, if they split their time with another location, and they will always say, this is my church. And I will always say, just like St. Bart's, I imagine, I will always say, whether they come every week or whether I have never seen them before and they haven't been there for 20 years, welcome home. And I think there is a sense of belonging and community that consistently exists, at least I hope it does in this place. And that's the sense of belonging that we cultivate. So you have a sense of the kind of urban area that we are in. This is one of the most popular places in London if you've been there. And the church is something of an oasis. We have a courtyard. It's set back from the street. We have a beautiful award-winning garden next to the courtyard. It's very peaceful. People will just come and contemplate, eat their lunch there. We have an Earth Justice eco-church group who come and do contemplative eco prayers in that garden and invite everybody to come and be part of that. And so there's interior stuff and there's church stuff, and there's also something about the location and the way that the incredibly busy, almost exhausting cycles of the city can be, at least for a time in people's lives, laid down, set aside just for a moment. So one of the most powerful things that I think St. James's offers is the ministry of simply being open. Open, warm, safe, welcome, increasingly accessible. We're trying to get there, and I'll say more about that in a moment. And a space where people can come and truly be themselves, no matter what they seek. And at morning prayer every morning, I pray for people who don't know why they come. And there are so many people who come to churches, especially churches like yours and like St. James's in the middle of town, where they just find themselves there and something happens. And whatever they bring and whoever they are, whether they come every week or whether they just find themselves there, that's holy ground. And we must maintain that experience of being holy ground. And we also have tons of activities, all of which connect to the heart of the Eucharist and our values in and around St. James's. So this is a plug for an online series which is taking place, curated by our eco team, Changing Our Minds, as in metanoia, transformation. And it's together with a series of guest speakers who primarily come from indigenous backgrounds and are working at the intersection of indigeneity and theology in order to consider the reality of a community that is abiding in God's grace and that is also interconnected with all life. Human, and as many at St. James's say, human and beyond human. And it's taking place online. Many of the speakers are also North American. They come from contexts in and around this region. So please do come and join us. On the left, you see one of our volunteers laying tables for Feast, which is our Monday evening gathering for people going through homelessness and who are on low income, where we turn the church into a restaurant. It takes 14 volunteers every week to make it run. Folks are down in the kitchen chopping vegetables. Folks are upstairs serving and hosting these tables. And we feed and offer company and companionship and mutual encouragement, mutual hospitality and conversation with one another. Over 120 people a week, here and also at our Sunday breakfast service, where people receive a hot, full English breakfast cooked by volunteers who arrive at 7 in the morning on a Sunday, and so just before church starts. There are folks in and around in the courtyard who are enjoying a cup of coffee, a sit down in the courtyard of the garden, and you can just take that moment together. Food and nourishment is also really important for us because we have a coffee shop at St. James's called Redemption Roasters, best name, and not a name that we invented or did with them though. They're a small chain, and they're profit for purpose. And they work in prisons and with people who've been through the prison system. So their roastery is in a prison in London. They have a number of people who've been through the prison system on their staff. The coffee is delicious, thankfully, so it's a wonderful thing. And we are very much in partnership with them. We are not just their host and they're our tenants. We are together in this. And one of the things that's inspired is bigger conversations at St. James's about the injustice within the so-called justice system, and the reality of imprisonment and the way that it is devastating in these cycles of pain and poverty for so many people of every gender and of so many backgrounds. And so that's part of our commitment, not only to work with that place, but also to be able to assist in some small way in our community in embodying what they believe in their slice of that work and what we believe in ours, so that we can do things together. Redemption Roasters, not a Christian organization at all. They're a coffee organization, and they're a justice-seeking organization. And so together, it's another manifestation of us working in relation to folks of all faiths and none, which we really care about. And here on the lower right, members of our international group. We've had for many years a number of people who've arrived as refugees and who are going through the asylum system, to the extent that we decided some years ago to employ a part-time support worker for those who are going through that process. Sometimes that means folks from St. James's turning up to spend time in court for the afternoon with someone who is going through the court process, who is having an appeal being heard, and to simply make sure that they've got some refreshments, they've got some company, that there's a quality of empathy and dignity and friendship in what they're going through, which is devastating and terrible. A few years ago, the UK invented an absolutely delightful phrase, and this is the government's phrase, to express its approach to incoming folks, its approach to migrants. That phrase, which some of you may have heard before, is hostile environment. And sometimes I think it's taken up now by folks who are critical of those who are activists in this space, saying hostile environment, that's not what we have. It's the government themselves that invented that. They're quite proud of cultivating this hostile environment. And so being able to speak into that with action in community and to say, no, this is a place of belonging as well as a place of advocacy, support of many kinds, where also these folks, a lot of them are volunteers in St. James's projects. They are in leadership positions. And that's because we're all in this together. It's really important to be able to connect in that way as well. A little while ago, we developed something called the Wren Project, which is a, deep breath, £20 million campaign to be able to redevelop and to transform our site. St. James's has existed on Piccadilly since 1684. It was designed by Christopher Wren, who also did St. Paul's Cathedral and many other churches in and around London. And actually, I was at Christ Church Alexandria for a dear friend's first Eucharist and for his ordination last week. And Christopher Wren's cousin, James Wren, was the designer for Christ Church Alexandria in the 1770s, which is just one of those wonderful things. The church was bombed in 1940. And it took many, many years to rebuild and to recover. And we built back fresh and we built back different. So when you come inside St. James's, you will see a very sympathetic reworking in mid-20th century classical style, what Wren had in mind and envisioned in the 17th century, which is really exciting. The architect working with us on the Wren project, because the church and the site needs an enormous amount of work, it is not yet fully wheelchair accessible. We need to change that. It is not as ecological as it needs to be. We need to change that. It is as yet not a building that has a kitchen which is big enough or accessible enough to do all of the social justice work that we want to do. And also, beauty is mission. If you have a beautiful place, then those people who don't know why they come will receive something of the glory and the beauty of God through the space that we offer. And that's just as true for St. Bart's. It's an incredible place. It's a place where people come in. I've seen them. I know. I'm one of those people where people come into this church and they go, wow, that's a sacred experience. It's not an optional extra, at least not for churches like ours. And it's not a tension, I believe, ultimately, between neglecting the building or neglecting to serve in community. It's that it's all one thing. If we have really good, really proper facilities, then we can create spaces that are beautiful, but that also serve us well, so that the people who we're connected to can come and receive whatever they need to come and receive. And this program is also connected to something called the Changemaker program, so that's inside the Wren program, and it's 5 strands for people between the ages of 21 and 34, connected to what's locally available inside St. James's. And a lot of the things that take place at the Changemakers program are specifically connected to what we do year by year. Solar panels, reoffending rates through redemption roasters. We have a free counseling center. We've had that since the 1980s called the Caravan, supporting people who are in mental health crisis. And all you have to do, it's in the garden, all you have to do is go up and knock on the door and a therapist will see you. Which is great as well for folks who are in my position, because if someone is in the church and they have experienced something which is utterly devastating and they're in pieces, I'm not a trained psychotherapist, I'm a priest. My listening, my heart, and my prayerfulness comes from a different sort of space. That we need to know and understand our boundaries in the way that we relate to one another is part of why it makes a great deal of sense, in addition to service to the community, for the caravan to exist and for us to support it together. It is absolutely holy ground just as much as the church is. And so there's one of our counselors at the caravan. There's some folks working down in the kitchen. That's Luke, one of our steadfast volunteers, and this is Robin, our food outreach coordinator. These are some delicious carrots. And all of the food is delivered each week by an organization called City Harvest, which takes food which otherwise would have been wasted from supermarkets. And it means that it's a bit ready, steady cook. They get down there in the afternoon. They don't know what's come in, and they think, okay, 2-course meal, 50 people, this is what we'll make. She is an absolute inspiration. I don't know how she does it, but it happens every week. And we also have a service called Wardrobe, clothing and warm items for those who need them. That's Joanna, who helps to run Wardrobe and is an extraordinary force of nature. We have worship outside from time to time. We do this in the summers. And there was this ingenious human being, a previous rector, who at the turn of the 20th century thought it would be a great idea to have an outdoor pulpit so that there could be preaching directly onto Piccadilly. And there's something amazing about gathering in the courtyard. And we also have a monthly gospel festival called Soul at St. James, together with Soul Sanctuary Gospel Choir. And it is so enlivening. It is so joyful. There are hundreds and hundreds of people that crowd into this courtyard and just have this amazing gospel experience where we share that together. On the right, a very different place. This is called the Royal Foundation of St. Catherine, where a group of people from St. James were on retreat together in early September. So that's Lucy, the rector. That's Cornell, who has been to visit here at St. Bart's. That's Sarah, who's been here. Wilson, who's been here. That's me. And that's Peter Thompson. So Peter, I think that this was the first thing you did with us. We'd not had a chance to really meet before in person, and you came in, and it was around the time just before one of our afternoon services on the first day, I think, maybe the second day, I don't know. And immediately, I was really mean. Immediately, I was like, will you do a reading? And you were like, yeah, sure. And I was like, this will go well. This is good. And so it was really wonderful to be able to welcome you for a few days to St. James's, just as St. Bart's has welcomed me. So I once again thank you all, and to dive right in with us in community and to be able to spend that spiritual time together. St. James's is also filled with the energy of the arts. This is Tokyo Myers on the right, giving an incredible piano performance. Stunning performer. And on the left, this is Jessie Darling. Jessie Darling won the extremely prestigious Turner Prize for Contemporary Art, and Jessie had a residency at St. James's October before last, filled the church with an installation specifically connected to his experience of church, had never exhibited in a place of worship before, and that actually was a significant, I think, risk to Jessie. Jessie, as a contemporary artist in a world in the arts where often that contemporary world is like religion, Christianity, absolutely not for us. Jessie is also trans. So it took a great amount of trust for him to come and work with us and say, will I not only be welcomed, but can I be prophetic here? Can I say and do what I actually want to say and do? And we said, yes, of course. And so one of the things that we did in conjunction with his exhibition is had a performance from Trans Voices UK, the UK's first transgender and non-binary choir, together with the installation that Jessie had. It was very powerful. And in March, this was a thing that happened. My goodness. It was amazing. We had drag queens. This is Son of a Tutu, singing beautifully. So we had drag queens in St. James's. It was an event where, in the evening, we opened our doors to hundreds of people to watch fantastic performances. We are right on the border between the glitter and the wealth of Piccadilly and St. James's, and between the glitter and the fabulousness of Soho, which I also know that Peter experienced when he was in London. He can tell you more about that if he wishes, because we have our very own drag queen in residence at St. James's, Elijah, whose fabulous stage name is Barbara. And Elijah is part of our colleagues at St. James's, doing worship services for us each week, and also helping us to run the Soul Sanctuary Gospel Choir monthly events that we have. And this, honestly, was an incredibly powerful experience because there were so many people in the church that night. The rector, Lucy, and I, we were in our collars welcoming people, and I had people coming up to me saying, I didn't know that this was possible. And I thought to myself, as these folks, young queer people primarily, knew that they were welcome and they sat in the pews and they applauded these amazing drag artists, I thought, okay, this is a cool, interesting thing to do. And it's pretty fun. And not a lot of churches will have done this, might even want to do this. That's pretty cool. I also felt heartbroken because I thought all those queer folks probably have assumed, rightly, for many years, perhaps for the whole of their lives, that the church is not for them. And it's awful, honestly, when people come up to me with tears in their eyes and say, I didn't know that I'd be welcomed here, because I thought the bar is so low. We've absolutely destroyed ourselves as a church for many generations and in many different ways. And to be able to rebuild and to offer a proper and authentic welcome that is genuinely real and that also comes from the front. I'm a queer person. I came out when I was 13. I came out before I became Christian. And to be able to have that as part of the experience of being at St. James's, to from the front say it's not only you are welcome, but we're in this together, is a really important thing in a place like that. And I mentioned Changemakers earlier, and here are our 5 strands that these young people will experience with proper mentoring and internship programs, with funding to allow their leadership to flourish, especially if they're from under-resourced backgrounds. Civil society, performing arts, music, business leaders, and environment. And this is the kind of project for people of all faiths and none that insists that despair is not an option, that the world is incredibly hard, that injustice is everywhere, exactly as we've heard and experienced as part of celebrating and remembering how far we have to go in Martin Luther King Jr. Day today. As we look back, as well as looking forward, we hope this kind of programming, together with the development and transformation of the building, that hopefully really is going to lead to lasting, proper, sustainable change. And as I spoke about earlier today in the forum, so if you weren't around for the forum, it's been recorded and you can catch up online if you wish. We also have been working with the artist Che Lovelace, with the Cardozo's Kindersley studio, and with some really powerful and wonderful visitors, including Bishop Rosemary Mallett, who came here to bless this beautiful monument, to bless this memorial, and who is the Bishop of Croydon, and she's one of the first Black women bishops in the Church of England, and she is a stunning human being, and I don't think she'd mind me saying that when she came to preach, to bless, and to be part of our liturgy here, to remember and then commit to action with Kuguano, for us, with us, she took time out of her holiday. We asked her, would you like to come and preach? And she said, well, yeah. And there was a lunch afterwards. And I said with, great thankfulness and respect, I hope, I said, why did you do that? Holiday is really precious. And she said, this is too important. It's too important. I had to come. So honoring her and honoring this is really, really important to us. And honoring Che Lovelace, who's made a series of paintings, 4 of them, connecting specifically to the story of Kuguano, about whom I preached this morning, and bringing that color and vibrancy in relation to experiences of baptism, of liberation, of freedom into the world. And so I bring, together with these fabulous people, greetings, prayers, love, peace, and all the fruits of the Spirit from St. James's to St. Bart's.